Thanks, Sean, and hello from me on this rather snowful Eastertide. It's a night for staying in the warm, and we've a real treat in store in Performance on 3, so the schedule has been slightly rejigged to accommodate it. Therefore, Composer of the Week, Carl Maria von Weber, will be at 9:15, followed by Night Waves at 10:15, and then straight to the essay at 11 o'clock. But in a few minutes from now, we can all sit comfortably and enjoy The Adventures of Pinocchio, a new opera with music by Jonathan Dove and words by Alistair Middleton. Their dramatisation of the 19th century book by Carlo Collodi was commissioned by Opera North with Sadlers Wells Theatre in London, and the complex staging was a co-production with Theater Chemnitz in Germany. The world premiere of The Adventures of Pinocchio took place just last December in Leeds, and since then it's been enjoyed by audiences in Nottingham, Salford Quays, Belfast, Newcastle, and at Sadlers Wells in London, where tonight's performance was recorded in February. The opera has a huge cast of singers, dancers, acrobats and onstage musicians who play various parts in the adventures of the wooden boy in his quest to become human. But Pinocchio himself is, of course, at the heart of the story, and I'm delighted to say that he's with me in the studio this evening to talk about the production. But in the person of mezzo-soprano Victoria Simmons, he's all woman. Victoria, welcome.
Thank you.
What did you think when you first got hold of the libretto and the score?
Well, I got the libretto first, and when I read through it, I just thought it was so funny. Every other line just was making me laugh, which is a good start. And I had to wait quite a long time to get the score and to find out just what it was I'd said yes to. And no, I was thrilled. It's a great piece. It's got lots of catchy numbers, lots of very upbeat music, and it's a really good fun piece for the whole family to enjoy, as they say. And
he's an enchanting character, isn't he, Pinocchio? How did you... Well, you convinced me totally. I thought you were made of wood until... Well, we won't spoil the story. But how did you go about becoming a wooden boy physically?
Well, I've played quite a number of boys before, so the boy part was fairly easy in a way, but the puppety thing is another challenge. I think I was probably a lot more puppety at the beginning of the show, and as it went on, I suppose I didn't sort of have to dwell on that side of things too much, but it was it was a very physical piece, and I just sort of, I guess I had lots of help. I had a great choreographer who was there to correct me if I sort of looked too girly, I suppose. I don't know.
You were a boy, you are now a girl.
I just loved it, yeah.
Well, this is an opera about a child, but is it a children's opera? A couple of weeks ago I talked to composer Jonathan Dove about the variety of musical styles in Pinocchio and the purpose behind them.
I really just set out to tell the story with as much vividness as I could muster. I'm aware that along the way sometimes there are echoes of familiar kinds of music. When the cat and the fox chase Pinocchio through the wood, that there are some pounding chords which are suspiciously like the Dies Irae from the Verdi Requiem. And I think Verdi is present in other places, as here and there are Wagner, Rossini, I expect.
Is it possible that the Cunning Little Vixen might have an affectionate tribute here and there?
Yes, that's one of the operas that I transcribed for a chamber orchestra, and it's one that I'm particularly fond of. And once you've made a transcription, you have the deceptive feeling that you've actually written the piece, which possibly leads one into dangerous ground. But I did have the feeling that this might well be an opera that would be the first opera that some of the audience would ever have seen. And I liked the idea that it might be possible to write a piece which would introduce people to the world of opera. And I think if there are references to operatic kinds of behaviour, operatic gestures, if you like the chorus of the sing out to sea at the end of Act 1, are a bit like the Peter Grimes that's playing at Sadlers Wells on alternate nights here, but it's also a bit like the chorus at the beginning of Othello, the chorus confronting a storm at sea. And I thought it would also be an opportunity for possibly younger audience members to experience the range of singing that the human voice, the unamplified human voice, is capable of. The highest possible soprano voice for the cricket and the parrot, and the deepest possible bass voice for the big green fisherman, and in fact all of the scary, big scary men who threaten Pinocchio's life. But that you also have a different kind of soprano, a more motherly sort of soprano sound for the blue fairy, and then this mezzo-soprano sound which is as close as I can get to the sound of a boy without actually asking a real boy to be on stage.
So, Victoria Simmons, a.k.a. Pinocchio, you're not a real boy, you're
I'm
a real
not.
girl. Do you find Jonathan's music as singable as I do?
Yeah, it's great because it's it's obviously contemporary, but it's got lots of melody in it, and it just sort of, I don't know how he does it, but it is very easy to sing. I mean, obviously there were passages that were more taxing than others, but no, I loved it, and it really showed off all, the top and the bottom and the middle and everything. So yeah, it was great experience vocally.
And of course, it's a wonderful marriage with Alistair Middleton's clear and eloquent libretto. They're the words that a real boy would use, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and that's right. The text was just right. They just got the level just right, and the way that the action moves along as well is really good because they've got a lot to pack into one evening. Lots of things happen to Pinocchio along the way.
Well, each episode leads to another, so
that's right.
It's very hard to know how they could have left anything out.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
Pinocchio is so well-meaning, but he's so easily led astray. How did you identify with him?
I think, well, having a small child, actually, as I have, you do, even at 2 years old, I see little traits that, that you can imagine that Pinocchio would have. I mean, he's a little bit annoying. He might be endearing, but he can be, very annoying at times and really obnoxious and irritating, as children sometimes are. They're very demanding and they don't see the point of asking or saying please and thank you, or, they just say what they think,
But he deserves to be loved, doesn't he?
Yes.
Well, a lot of people, of course, think they know the story from the animated film. So when I talked to Jonathan, I asked him how he and Alistair had treated this story.
Differently from Disney, I think, because in Disney's time, he clearly felt that you couldn't show quite so many narrow escapes from death. But the experience we've had writing pieces for and with children over the last few years has been that children really love scary stories. Ideally, they like a bit of blood too, and actually there isn't any blood, although there's a squished cricket in Pinocchio. But so we thought we didn't want to hold back on those moments. I suppose the scariest probably is the moment where the cat and the fox, disguised as assassins, chase Pinocchio through the forest, so he ends up in front of the Blue Fairy's cottage. He doesn't give up the 5 gold coins that the cat and the fox are trying to get hold of, and so they hang him from a tree and leave him for dead. And I think that is a frightening image.
The opera is in 2 acts, so time now for a synopsis of Act 1, which opens with a log of wood on a bare stage crying, "Make me," to the poor carpenter Geppetto. Geppetto carves the log into a wooden boy and says proudly, "See my son run." Pinocchio wants to be more than a puppet. He wants to become a real boy, and he's told to listen and learn. But no matter how hard he tries to be good, Pinocchio can't stay out of trouble. He ignores the advice of a cricket and breaks all his promises to his friend the Blue Fairy. In the 11 scenes of Act 1, Pinocchio is created, sets off for school, but gets distracted, is very brave at the puppet show, meets a cat and a fox who are up to no good, learns about the consequences of lying, discovers the meaning of justice and freedom, and gets a lift from a pigeon, who takes him to the beach where his father Geppetto has set off in a frail old boat in search of his beloved wooden son. Pinocchio leaps into the water to go to his father's rescue as the crowd on the beach cries, "Swim, boy, swim!" If you're listening on digital radio, you can follow this episodic plot scene by scene on running dab text. So here is Act 1 of The Adventures of Pinocchio.
Piece of wood. That's good. I will take it home with me, throw it on the fire to cook my tea. talking stick. I'll just throw it away and find some wood another day.
No, don't toss me aside. Make me what I am inside. No!
All right, shut up. You'll wake all the neighbors up. And how will I explain shouting wood?
You'll make me
Yes,
good.
what's to be made? What's to be made? What can it be? What can it be? What's in the wood? What's in the wood that wants to be free? That wants to be free? But the night falls, work the tools shout, open the wood, and let the life out. But the night falls, work the tools shout, open the wood, and let the life out. Open the wood and let the light out.
Carve and cut and plane and whittle. Carve and cut and plane and whittle. Chisel, 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 chisel. Chisel, chisel, chisel.
What?
It tickles. Make my arm, my elbow, wrist. Make my hand, my fingers, fist.
Ow! You little naughty wood. Be good now.
I will be good. Don't stop. Come on, chop chop. Make me quick. Make me legs so I can run. Make me feet so I can kick.
I thought you said it should be good.
I will be good, but kicking is fun.
There. It's done. You're made. You're made. You're made. You're made.
I
piece of wood I nearly threw away.
I'm starving. What's in here? Fried bread? Yuck. Got any jam?
No,
Ham?
that dry bread is all I have. It's mine.
It'll have to do.
It was my breakfast.
I was almost starving like you. No, I need more. And I need jam.
There isn't any. Jam costs money, and I haven't a penny.
Get some now.
How?
What if I said please?
Money doesn't grow on trees. Pinocchio, it's time you learn. Money's earned by honest, good, hard work.
Work,
Work.
work, the most horrible word I've ever heard.
You can't grow up an idle fool. Pinocchio, you must go to school.
School, that word's more horrible than the first. Of all the horrible words I've heard, school's the worst.
Don't you want to go to school and learn? Get a good job, work hard, and earn enough for jam every single day.
I'd rather play.
Real boys don't play all day. They learn to read and write and spell. And they do long hard sums as well.
Is that really what real boys do?
Yes, it's true. It's what they do. And so with you.
I will.
Real boys work hard all day. Don't loaf about. Don't kick. Don't shout. They do what's right. Don't lie. Don't fight.
Is that really what real boys don't do?
It's true. They don't. And nor will you. Will you?
I won't.
That's a good boy. Now a boy who's going to school, he's going to need a book.
I need a book. What sort of book?
A school book.
A school book.
A book you can read in and writing and spelling. A book that's for handing and taking away.
Get me that book. I need that book. That book I can read and writing and spelling. That book that's for having and taking away.
A book you can read in and writing and spelling. A book that's for handing and taking away. Oh, am I going to get in that book? I haven't a penny.
Learn so many things to do.
Oh, am I going to get in that book? I haven't a penny.
Read,
I haven't a
write,
penny.
add, spell.
How can I afford it?
Add, spell. That book I need it. Get it. Go.
Oh, I know. I'm going out. I won't be long. While I'm gone, put away your plate and cup. Do the dishes and sweep up.
I put away my plate and cup. Do the dishes. Sweep up. Being a boy's exhausting. I
I'm not sure if I should. If I make you new feet, will you be good? And do the things you said you would?
I will be good. I'll be so good. Be so clever. You'll never be sorry you made me new feet.
Well, if you promise.
I promise. I'll be good. You will see what a good boy I can be. Who's not behaving perfectly? It's me. Other boys who see me will want to be me. Bad me. Mothers who see me will wish they could be.
There, your feet are made.
What a clever father I have.
And here's your school book.
What a kind father I have. But where's your coat?
I sold it to buy your book.
What a good father I have.
It's time for school, off you go, Pinocchio. Learn a lot, be good, Pinocchio. Goodbye, Pinocchio. Goodbye.
I'll be so clever. I'll be so good. Next time you see me, you won't know me. Off to school on my first day. Straight away I learn to read and I learn to write. And if I'm good and if I try, then overnight I'll be so bright. From what I read and from what I wrote, before you know I'll be able to buy my father a brand new coat.
You've never met puppets as good, I bet. It's like they're flesh and blood, and yet they're made of wood. The better set of puppets I bet you never met. These puppets are good. That's tuppence. Cheers, gents, in you go.
How much did you see the show?
A penny.
Penny. I haven't a penny.
No.
No.
Off you go. We're not a charity, you know. No penny, no show. A brilliant display of the puppet's skill. You want to see the puppets go in and you will. Many like they excite, they love, they thrill. These puppets are good. Step in and go up your fill.
It sounds exciting. I'd love a look. It's only a penny, but I have a penny. If I had something that I could sell, just a quick look. There's the school bell. Wait, my school book. Need a book. Need a book. You're not what you'd like to read. What's the last thing that I need?
right, I'm there, and now you'll pay.
Pity your poor penitent puppet! Pity your poor penitent puppet!
I know no pity. I am known as fighter. The pitiless! You look like you're made of pretty dry wood. I've got a sheep on a spit that's roasting. You look like a flare of wood. Body still flaming on the fire.
Father, Father, save me, save me! I don't want to die! I don't want to die! I don't want to die! Oh, Father, what will you do without me?
Silence! Silence! Your tears make my tummy feel funny. They give me a prickly feeling in my nose.
Bless you!
Thank you. Sneeze is a sign that he's sorry for you.
Bless you!
Thank you.
What a polite little chap. What's your mommy doing letting you out on your own?
I haven't got a mummy.
A motherless wooden boy, it would melt a heart of stone. Achoo!
Bless you!
Thank you.
Bless you!
All right, just this once. Off you go. But who will roast my sheep? Someone's got to burn. Policeman, bring that Arlecchino on the
Pity your poor penitent puppet! Pity your poor penitent puppet!
Mercy!
Mercy, mercy, mercy!
No, no mercy. I am known as fighter. The merciless! Now you run on home to your daddy and look after yourself. And you, fling him on the fire. That sheep won't roast itself.
Stop! Policeman, take me, burn me, set poor Arlecchino free! If someone's got to roast that sheep, well, that someone should be me! Bless you!
Thank you.
I think I've got something in my eye.
Come here, my good brave boy, defiant, lucky, you must be your father's pride and joy. And you there, think yourself lucky. Tonight I'll eat my sheep rare. What's your father's name?
Geppetto,
And what does he do for a living?
he's a pauper.
And does he make much money at that?
He hasn't a penny.
Here are 5 gold coins. Take them home to him.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now run along and be a good boy.
I will be good. From now on, I will be good.
What are you not looking at? Haven't you got a show to rehearse?
Pinocchio, my fine young fellow, charming it is to see you again. How do you know my name? Oh, your father and I go way back. Way back. My poor father, how is he? In his shirt sleeve shivering, in his shirt sleeve shivering, shivering. He'll never shiver ever again. We are rich. Look, fine cold coins. And what will you do with your newfound wealth? First, I'll buy father a brand new coat, as warm and cozy as it can be. Then I'll buy a brilliant school book just for me. A school book? Oh, Pinocchio, be careful. We implore you, Pinocchio, to take care. It was through my foolish passion for study that I lost the sight in both of my eyes. And through my reckless pursuit of knowledge, I lost the use of my lower limb. Really? Of course, really. But tell me, Pinocchio, instead of having a poultry, pitiful, somewhat pathetic, 5 gold coins, what would you say to 5,000? 5,000? There's a place not far from here. It's called the Field of Miracles, where, if you know how, you might clear a fortune overnight. You put a penny in the ground, you'll water it, top sprouts a pound. That's the Field of Miracles. The Field of Miracles. Gold coins planted in the earth and grow 1,000 times their worth. That's the Field of Miracles. The Field of Miracles. Use as much as you can be. return in a moment to take you to the field of miracles. people who say you'll be rich in a day are either mad or bad. Go home. I'm going to the field of miracles. What is it, lady? The field of miracles. It is not the field of miracles. Boys who always want their own way. Same old rubbish. Good night, cricket. Good night, Pinocchio. And may heaven preserve you from all danger and from assassins. Assassins! As if I believed in assassins. And if I believed in assassins, as if I'd be scared of assassins. Oh no, assassins! Your money or your life? Life! Give us your money or you're dead! Dead! Dead, 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 dead. And after we kill you, we'll kill your father too. Your father too. No, not my father. Help me! They're going to kill me! Help me! Help me! Let me in! Pinocchio! Pinocchio! There is no one in this house. They are dead. Open the door! Open the door! But I'm dead too. Dead? Dead. What are you doing there at the window? I'm waiting for them to take me away.
He's put the money in his mouth.
Stab it!
It's no good. The blade keeps breaking on the wood. Hang him from the black oak. Hang him from the black oak.
Here's some cover. I hope you brought the rope.
Ropes, a thing I always bring. It gives a murder more of a swing.
What's your diagnosis?
The diagnosis is not good. This is one sick piece of wood. He's got tongue-chitis, barklepsy, twig rot stumps, leaf pile, bud box, crabble, crumbs.
Oh no!
The diagnosis is quite bleak. If he were made of Lucatic, then he would not be quite so weak. But as it is, he's got dry, rotten, wet, rotten, death, watch, beetle, and woodworm, and bloodworm, and budworm, and budworm, and he's warming quite badly with black fly and green fly. And there's a spotted green fly, and ringworm, and weevils, and aphids, and lice.
Dear me, oh me! The diagnosis come from mine. He's a poorly piece of pine. He's got animula, glandular, vacuolar, and dropsy. He's got elm disease, Dutch of Madagascar. He's got creeping, sacred, galloping, Hertzspree, Jekyll syndrome, and Travis disease, bankruptcy. Oh, sad! I almost feel like crying.
Tongue-chitis,
So you're agreed that he's quite sick?
here's some medicine that might do the trick.
I'm dying. This medicine will make you better. That medicine tastes bitter. How can you tell? I can tell by the smell. Well, when you have your medicine, you can have a sweet to take the taste away. Sweet, no, sweet, no. Sweet medicine, sweet, no. Promise, promise, sweet. Ooh, this sweet is good. Oh, medicine. No, another sweet. Medicine, sweet. Medicine. No, I'd rather die than drink that bitter medicine. You'd rather die. I'd rather die. Take the medicine away. But I won't. Keep them away. Pinocchio, you said you'd rather be dead. They've come to take you away. Where's the medicine? Give me my medicine. I need my medicine. No! It's a lovely coffin. Medicine! Satin inside. Medicine! Well, if you're sure, here you are. But it is bitter. No, I feel better. I feel much better. I feel well. So anything that's lost, there is always found. Let's go and look for them.
Oh, that's right. I remember now.